At its heart, this case begins with Jan Pietrzak and Quiana Jenkins-Pietrzak, two people who believed they were finally safe. A newly married couple building a future together, making plans, trusting the world around them, and expecting nothing more than time. What followed was not sudden, and it was not random. It unfolded through deliberate choices, shared silence, and a trail of violence that only becomes clear when every piece is laid out. In this series, we do not stop at the headlines or the verdicts. We walk through what happened, step by step, until the full weight of the truth becomes impossible to ignore. Jan Pietrzak was a United States Marine Corps sergeant stationed at Camp Pendleton. He was disciplined, respected, and known as someone who followed rules closely. He had served in Iraq as a helicopter mechanic and had recently returned to the United States to continue his career. In 2008, he was building what looked like a stable future. He had just married Quiana Jenkins, a woman he deeply cared about, and they were starting their life together in Southern California. Quiana was working full-time and was close with her family, especially her mother. She was careful, organized, and serious about safety. When the couple bought their home in French Valley, Riverside County, security was a priority. They installed an alarm system with keypads in both the master bedroom and the kitchen. Family photographs were placed in the entryway. They had a small dog that usually stayed close to them. Nothing about their home suggested chaos or instability. Everything suggested planning and intention. They moved into the house at 31,300 19 Bermuda Street in June 2008. The house was quiet and located in a residential area not far from Camp Pendleton. Janek continued working as a Marine sergeant. Quiana continued her job and stayed in regular contact with her mother. On the evening of October 14, 2008, Quiana spoke with her mother on the phone at around 8 o'clock. During the call, her mother heard her activate the home alarm. That detail would later become important. At 9:47 p.m., Quiana's mother sent her a text message saying good night. The message was never answered. The next morning, Wednesday, October 15th, Janek did not show up for work. That alone was unusual. He was not known for missing duty without notice. His supervisor tried calling his cell phone. There was no answer. By around 9 a.m., the supervisor contacted the Riverside County Sheriff's Department and asked for a welfare check at the house. Around the same time, Quiana also failed to show up for work. Her supervisor separately contacted law enforcement to request a check on the home. 2 missed work days, no phone contact, and no explanation raised immediate concern. Deputy Matthew Hughes was dispatched to the house. When he arrived, he noticed the front door was slightly open. That immediately changed the tone of the visit. He did not enter right away. He called for backup. When officers went inside, the first thing they saw was a purse dumped on the floor near the entrance. A cabinet door was open. The smell of gasoline and natural gas was strong inside the house. Janek and Quiana were found dead in the living room. There was no one else inside. The dog was locked inside the master bedroom and was alive. At first glance, there were no clear signs of forced entry. The alarm system was still operational. Investigators later confirmed that if a door or window had been broken while the alarm was armed, a loud siren would have sounded. If the front door had been opened, there would have been a short delay before the alarm activated, unless someone knew the code. That detail raised immediate questions about how the intruders entered and how much they knew. Inside the house, investigators began documenting the scene. A knife was sitting on the center of the living room table. Alcohol bottles were scattered on the floor. Shoe prints were visible on the tile walkway near the dumped purse. A pool of blood was found in an area separate from where the bodies were located, suggesting someone had been injured and moved through the house. Janek's condition showed clear signs of violence before death. He had blood dripping down his legs and knees. He had been beaten. There were bruises on his body and a pattern on his back consistent with a shoe sole, indicating he had been kicked repeatedly. His wrists and ankles were bound with red duct tape. His right wrist was taped to his ankles. A sock was forced into his mouth and taped in place. He was positioned kneeling, facing a pillow. Quiana's body told a different but equally disturbing story. She was naked. Her wrists were bound behind her back with the same red duct tape. A sock had been placed over her eyes and taped. There was tape around her chin area. A vibrator and a red candle were found between her legs. A letter C had been spray painted on her stomach. One entered the back of her neck at very close range. Another entered her forehead and traveled through her brain. That second wound was fatal. Evidence of pillow stuffing in her hair indicated a cushion had been placed between her and the gun. Bullet holes were found in a nearby couch cushion and in the sofa arm. Soot and blood patterns confirmed close-range firing. The house itself showed signs of a thorough search. Upstairs, the master bedroom was ransacked. Drawers were pulled open. Clothes were on the floor. A nightgown with cut straps was found. A roll of red duct tape and vibrator packaging were also located there. A dust-free rectangle on a dresser suggested a jewelry box had been removed. Downstairs cabinets, closets, and even the garage had been opened. Items were scattered across the floor. Racial messages had been spray painted on the walls in the master bedroom and bathroom. A spray paint can was left on the dining room table. No usable fingerprints were found anywhere in the house, suggesting gloves had been worn. Numerous shoe prints were documented, indicating more than one person was involved. There were clear signs of attempted arson. Gasoline had been poured throughout the house and on both bodies. A red gas can was found in the family room. Another gas can was in the kitchen. A mop stick with a burned shirt attached was found, acting as a makeshift torch. Burn patterns on the carpet and wood floor upstairs confirmed fires had been set. The gas knobs on the stove were turned on, creating the risk of explosion. Investigators shut off the gas to prevent further danger. Several valuable items were missing. Both Janek's and Quiana's wedding rings were gone. Jewelry sets, watches, necklaces, and bracelets were missing, including a men's Movado watch and multiple gold and pearl items. The disappearance of these items pointed toward robbery, but the level of violence suggested something more complex. Another detail surfaced later that added to the mystery. At approximately 3:30 a.m. on October 15th, money was withdrawn from the couple's joint bank account at an ATM in Fallbrook. A correct PIN was required. Surveillance footage showed the person covering the camera with a hand. The ATM was located just outside a gate leading into Camp Pendleton and was the fastest route from the Pietrzak home to the base. As investigators began collecting evidence, attention quietly shifted toward people connected to Janek through the Marines. Some worked under him. Some socialized with him. Some had already been linked to violent crimes nearby. What started as a welfare check was now a homicide investigation with multiple paths opening at once, and detectives began following each one carefully. One of the first major searches focused on the residence of Tyrone Miller, a Marine living in base housing at Camp Pendleton. The search took place on October 29th and 30th, 2 weeks after the murders. What investigators found inside Miller's home immediately raised alarms. In the laundry room, deputies recovered a blue bandana. Under a sofa cushion in the family room, they found a piece of paper with Janek and Quiana's home address written on it. In the master bedroom, they located a gold bracelet with black inlay engraved with both Janek's and Quiana's names. Nearby were a man's wedding ring and a gold necklace with a pendant. 2 debit cards bearing Quiana's name were also found inside the bedroom. The search continued into closets and storage areas. Inside a backpack, deputies found bolt cutters, ammunition, gloves, handcuffs, and a handgun magazine. Another backpack contained 4 blue bandanas, gloves, a black sock, and a black sweatshirt. Firearms were scattered throughout the home. Investigators recovered 2 Beretta 9mm pistols, a 92 FS, and a 92D. They also found a Colt .32 caliber pistol, a Colt .45 caliber handgun, 5 rifles, and a sawed-off shotgun. A Marine Corps dress, blues jacket with sergeant patches was also recovered. Ballistics testing quickly connected the weapons to the crime scene. The 92 FS and 92D were the only guns capable of firing the 9mm rounds used in the murders. 4 spent cartridge cases found inside a baggie in Miller's home were tested and confirmed to have been fired from the 92 FS. 1 bullet recovered from the Pietrzak home was suitable for comparison, and it matched the same firearm. This directly linked a gun from Miller's residence to the murders. The gloves found inside one backpack carried another disturbing connection. The name Miller was written on the tag inside. The gloves appeared to have silver paint stains. DNA testing showed Quiana's DNA on the outside surface. Investigators concluded the amount and placement of DNA were consistent with contact involving her body or the vibrator found at the scene. Bloodstains were also found on the blue bandanas recovered from Miller's home. Testing confirmed one of the bandanas contained Janek's blood. At the same time, investigators executed a search at the barracks room of Emrys John on October 30th. Inside his room, deputies located a blue bandana with white markings under the bed. A backpack contained black gloves. A pair of Nike Cortez shoes were seized, and the soles showed a pattern consistent with the shoe impression injuries found on Janek's back. Blood on the shoes matched Janek's DNA. A folded blue bandana was also found inside John's vehicle. A third search took place at the apartment of Melissa Buck on November 2nd. Several people were present, including Kassan Sykes. On a countertop, deputies found a two-piece wedding ring set. In the bathroom, they located a yellow metal necklace with a pendant containing 3 vertical stones. A laptop, an Xbox, and video games were in the living room. In a bedroom connected to documents bearing Sykes' name, deputies found a pearl ring and a thumb drive. Inside a hallway closet, they recovered a jewelry box containing stationery from Quiana's workplace and a bag holding a Movado black watch and additional jewelry. Quiana's mother later identified the wedding rings, the pendant, and the pearl jewelry as belonging to her daughter. The jewelry box itself was confirmed to be Quiana's. The Movado watch belonged to Janek. No property belonging to the defendant was found inside Buck's apartment, but the presence of the victim's belongings confirmed stolen property had been distributed across multiple locations. As evidence mounted, investigators began interviewing Marines connected to the group. One of them was Jeffrey Gallego. Gallego stated that around 2 in the morning on the night of the murders, John knocked on his door and appeared unusually excited and energized. A day or 2 later, Gallego saw John and the defendant together at a smoking area on base. Gallego described John making a graphic hand gesture while laughing with the defendant. Although part of Gallego's testimony was later stricken, the timing and behavior drew attention. Investigators also looked back at an earlier crime. On September 19th, less than a month before the Pietrzak murders, a violent home invasion occurred in Oceanside. Eric Thomason, Nancy Balcom, and their child were inside their apartment when a masked man with a gun forced entry. Multiple attackers followed. They demanded drugs and weapons. Thomason was beaten, stomped, and threatened with a gun pressed against a pillow at his head. Balcom was touched against her will and threatened with rape. Jewelry, electronics, cash, and personal items were stolen. Evidence later tied this robbery to the same group. Balcom's jewelry box was found in Buck's apartment. A thumb drive recovered from Sykes' room contained a photograph of Balcom. The methods used in the robbery showed striking similarities to the Pietrzak case, including the use of bandanas, firearms, physical assault, and a pillow placed between a gun and a victim's head. Justin Weisinger became a key witness. He arrived at Camp Pendleton in early 2008 and became close with Miller, John, and the defendant. Weisinger admitted participating in the Oceanside robbery along with Miller, Sykes, Buck, and the defendant. He described planning the crime, wearing gloves, covering faces, and using guns. After the robbery, they returned to Buck's apartment and split the money. Weisinger was in custody on an unrelated matter during the first half of October. When he returned, he learned Janek and Quiana had been killed. According to Weisinger, Miller later told him that he, John, the defendant, and Sykes went to Janek's house armed and masked. Miller described forcing entry, restraining both victims, beating Janek, stealing jewelry, and sexually assaulting Quiana using objects. He said John was ordered to carry out the executions using a couch cushion as a barrier. Weisinger stated that Miller admitted attempting to burn the house and collecting shell casings afterward. John later joined the conversation and admitted he shot both victims. Weisinger said a second discussion occurred with Miller, John, and the defendant present, where they spoke about the assault and murders. Weisinger was able to provide investigators with details that had never been released publicly, strengthening his credibility. Days later, Weisinger was riding with Miller and John when a gun accidentally discharged inside the car, striking Miller. This incident brought law enforcement attention back onto the group. When deputies questioned Miller at the hospital, inconsistencies began to surface. Melissa Buck also gave statements. She admitted participating in the Oceanside robbery and confirmed the group's pattern of criminal activity. Buck stated that on the night of the Pietrzak murders, Miller, John, Sykes, and the defendant left her apartment late and returned several hours later, carrying a jewelry box and smelling like gunpowder. She recalled hearing comments about someone earning stripes that night. Her statements changed over time, but investigators considered them alongside physical evidence. On October 30th, the defendant was interviewed by Sergeant Gary LeClaire. During questioning, LeClaire used deception, telling the defendant that his DNA had been found at the crime scene. The defendant initially denied involvement, but eventually admitted going to the Pietrzak home with Miller and others. He claimed he believed they were robbing a drug dealer and minimized his role. His account shifted multiple times, placing him alternately inside and outside the house. By early November, Riverside County authorities announced that 4 Marines had been arrested. They were Emrys John, Kassan Sykes, Kevin Darnell Cox, and Tyrone Miller. All were charged with 2 counts of murder with special circumstances, along with sexual assault-related charges. The district attorney announced the intent to seek the death penalty. Public discussion quickly focused on motive. Some media outlets raised the possibility of a racially motivated attack due to racist graffiti found in the home and the interracial marriage of the victims. Investigators stated the primary motive was robbery and that the graffiti was intended to mislead. The victims' families publicly questioned that explanation. All 4 defendants pleaded not guilty. Trials were delayed by competency hearings and procedural issues. Eventually, separate juries heard the cases. Testimony included forensic, evidence, witness statements, confessions, and prior criminal conduct. In 2013, verdicts were returned. John and Miller received death sentences. Cox was sentenced to life without parole. Sykes was later sentenced to death as well. Jan Pietrzak and Quiana Jenkins-Pietrzak were not just victims in a case file. They were a husband and wife whose lives were taken through calculated violence, betrayal, and choices that continue to haunt everyone connected to this story. If you value deep, carefully researched true crime stories, support the channel by liking this video, sharing your thoughts in the comments, and subscribing for more cases explored from start to finish.